I am so happy. Portrait.
If you thought the debate around Caitlyn Clark was dying down, think again. Cheryl Miller just stepped in with some serious heat, and let's just say she didn't hold back, especially when it came to Sheryl Swoopes. After Miller's remarks, Swoopes might need more than a breather. And let's be clear, when it comes to setting the record straight in women's basketball, Cheryl Miller is the ultimate authority. She's the original basketball legend, the player who was so dominant, she made people tune into women's basketball long before the WNBA even existed. Miller didn't just play the game, she changed it. Now, let's rewind a bit. Sheryl Swoopes, the WNBA Hall of Famer and three-time MVP, has been one of the loudest critics of Caitlyn Clark. Whether it's about Clark's media attention, her role in the league, or the so-called unfair advantages she's been given, Swoopes has been vocal. But let's just say, she's not exactly a fan of Caitlyn. Normally, when a WNBA legend speaks, people listen. But Swoopes' comments have started to sound a bit more like gatekeeping than genuine critique. Instead of recognizing Caitlyn Clark as a once-in-a-generation talent, Swoopes seems more focused on picking apart her success. That's where Cheryl Miller comes in. If there's anyone who has the right to speak up and set things straight, it's Miller.
Because it needs to be said, I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. Mm-hmm. I know what it's like to be hated. Mm. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my color.
Yeah.
I can't imagine this young lady, I don't want to use hate, but despised. Mm-hmm. And people just having, she brought some on herself a little bit because she's cocky for a good reason.
Mm-hmm. Confident.
And I love that about her. But to watch the dynamics and the media, they had their narrative. Mm-hmm. And I was pleased and proud to see the narrative wasn't the truth.
Right.
In a recent interview, Cheryl Miller didn't just join the Caitlyn Clark conversation, she completely took over. While she didn't directly call out Sheryl Swoopes, she made it clear that some people in the WNBA are missing the bigger picture. As a basketball icon who has witnessed the game evolve from its early days to the powerhouse it is now, Miller didn't hold back. She showed massive respect for Caitlyn Clark, and the way she spoke should make even the harshest critics reconsider their views.
Pounding Clark. Clark, step back three, knocks it down!
And the best part? Cheryl Miller shut down everything Swoopes has been pushing, and she did it effortlessly. Let's be honest, Miller isn't just another former player, she's one of the most dominant forces to ever play the game. She was torching defenders long before Swoopes even stepped onto the court. Miller played in a time when there was no WNBA, no big endorsement deals, and no massive contracts, yet she still became a legend. Her impact on the game is undeniable.
What she's alluding to here, and they showed a little clip of it, is there was this clip that went viral after one of Caitlyn Clark's games. Cheryl Miller was there, and Caitlyn ran up to her. Cheryl gave her some words and told her that she had a great game and gave her a big hug. In that time, when that moment happened, it really did feel like the world was against Caitlyn. There's a lot of these media narratives going around, and so a lot of people who are fans of Caitlyn Clark and thought that she maybe deserved better and didn't deserve some of these narratives that were going around, they thought that was a really wholesome clip, and a lot of people were praising Cheryl Miller, like, thank you for at least standing up for her in a time where it didn't feel like anybody else was. And so I like that, Cheryl Miller basically said, I saw a piece of myself in Caitlyn Clark. I know what it feels like to be hated. Now, she also said that Caitlyn brought some of it upon herself. And I guess, in a sense, if you do any sort of trash talking, you can bring people to not like you. But I think anybody at any level, there's no superstar. Let me think about that for a second. Maybe there's not no superstar, but there's very rarely superstars that everyone's a fan of. And especially when it comes to sports, right? If you are a Boston Celtics fan, you probably don't like LeBron. If you're a Lakers fan, you probably don't like Jason Tatum. Like, there will always be those rivalries and things, but the kind of hate and narrative that was surrounding Caitlyn Clark was much different than, oh, I just don't like you because you're on the opposing team. And I think that's what she's alluding to here.
So, if anyone is in the perfect position to turn Cheryl Swoopes' own words back on her, it's definitely Cheryl Miller.
A Brooklyn logo bomb from Caitlyn Clark.
Not to pick up the second because she got two in the first quarter against Connecticut.
Clark connects on a three.
Cheryl Miller didn't just say Caitlyn Clark deserves respect, she made it crystal clear why the arguments against her are outdated, bitter, and frankly embarrassing. Miller pointed out something every true basketball fan already knows: greatness isn't about who came first or who faced the toughest challenges. It's about who's dominating the game right now, and at this moment, Caitlyn Clark is that player. Swoopes and others seem stuck in the past, acting as if the game owes them something for the struggles they went through. But Miller gets it: basketball evolves, and new stars emerge in different ways. The WNBA needed a boost, and Caitlyn Clark is giving it that, right in front of our eyes. Miller made it clear that every sport needs a superstar to take it to new heights, and while Swoopes might not like it, Clark is drawing more attention, more money, and more eyes to the WNBA than anyone ever has before.
First basket of the game, Miller going up for the shot. And we've got an offensive foul called against Cheryl Miller to Cynthia Cooper.
Instead of complaining, Miller's message was simple: embrace it. If you don't, you're only holding the game back.
Great fake by Laurie Scott, and another great defensive move by Cheryl Miller making that block.
Home winning streak. Cheryl Miller driving on Jennifer White, pulls up short.
Cheryl Miller doesn't make excuses. She knows talent when she sees it and understands the hard work it takes to be great. Caitlyn Clark isn't an overnight sensation. She's a player who's put in the work, shattered records, and earned every bit of the attention she's getting. If some WNBA legends don't want to acknowledge that, that's on them. Miller made it clear: Caitlyn Clark belongs here, and the stats back it up.
Caitlyn Clark asks for the ball, and that's why she has done throughout her career at multiple levels. Tina Charles just had 2 points against...
Here's where things get even funnier. After Cheryl Miller's interview went viral, Sheryl Swoopes suddenly went quiet. The same Swoopes who had so much to say before? Nowhere to be found. Fans definitely noticed, and social media went wild with reactions. People were saying things like, Cheryl Miller just put Swoopes in a blender and hit the power button. Swoopes thought she was the gatekeeper, but Cheryl Miller just knocked down the whole gate. Miller reminded Swoopes who the real boss is. It's like the reality of the situation finally hit: when a true basketball queen speaks, everyone else better listen. At the end of the day, Cheryl Miller didn't just defend Caitlyn Clark, she shut down every weak argument that was thrown her way.
Of momentum last season with Caitlyn Clark entering the WNBA. Now you have the next draft class coming in. You have the Paige Beckers, you have the Olivia Miles, you have the Sonia Citron, you have the Dominique Malonga, you have all of these highly anticipated players. You have the Hailey Van Lith, who are going to be stepping into the WNBA next. And then in a few years, you have the Juju Watkins and you have the Hannah Hidalgos. And so I love the fact that they have to stay in college for 4 years. Not only for them and for making money, but also just for the game in itself. With men's college basketball, it is so hard at this point to really invest in certain players and certain teams because a lot of the greatest players are one and done. I'm totally with her here. I think it does need to stay like this. Even if you see somebody who might be ready to play in the league during their sophomore season or during their junior season, it should stay like this for the sake of the game, for the sake of the women, for how much money they make. And hopefully within the next 5-10 years, you will be making a significant amount of money on your WNBA salary as well.
Cheryl Miller made it clear to the world: basketball isn't about who gets permission to shine, it's about who puts in the work and gets the job done. Caitlyn Clark is here to stay, and as far as Cheryl Miller is concerned, anyone still doubting her is stuck in the past. And as for Sheryl Swoopes? Let's just say she might want to sit this one out because Cheryl Miller just handed her an L she won't forget anytime soon. If there's one woman in basketball history who deserves nothing but respect, it's Cheryl Miller. She's one of the most dominant forces to ever play the game, a player who changed how basketball was played long before the world was ready to fully embrace women's sports. And here's the kicker: Cheryl Miller sees something in Caitlyn Clark that reminds her of herself. Because make no mistake, before Caitlyn Clark was rewriting the record books, Cheryl Miller had already burned them to ashes.
To Wyndham. Cheryl Miller in the corner. Miller will take that shot all day and make it.
Most of the second half, and that is when USC has made their comeback. But now she's...
Let's take a deep dive into the legend of Cheryl Miller, her incredible accolades, how she was light years ahead of her time, and why she has such a deep appreciation for Caitlyn Clark. Before the WNBA, before women's college basketball became as popular as it is today, and long before social media could spotlight talent in the way it does now, there was Cheryl Miller. She was more than just a player, she was a force that completely changed the game. Miller was so dominant, so skilled, and so electrifying that she didn't just play basketball, she transformed it.by the time Miller stepped foot in college, she was already making history. In high school, she scored an astonishing 105 points in a single game. Yes, you read that right. She was named National High School Player of the Year twice, and her skills were so undeniable that she quickly became the top recruit in the country. At a time when female basketball players were getting far less attention than they deserved, Cheryl Miller had already established herself as a superstar. Miller's impact on the game of basketball is impossible to overstate. She didn't just dominate on the court, she helped pave the way for future generations of women to get the recognition they deserve.
Scott had the open shot, goes inside to Sossamet, has it blocked on her. A clean block by USC. 1 second. It's all over, and Southern Cal has won the national championship.
This was just the beginning. When Cheryl Miller arrived at the University of Southern California, USC, she didn't just meet expectations, she shattered them. As a two-time NCAA champion, Miller wasn't just a player, she was the leader who put USC women's basketball on the map. A three-time Naismith College Player of the Year and four-time All-American, Miller proved that one All-American honor was never going to be enough for her. She was named the most outstanding player of the NCAA tournament, showing that when championships were on the line, she elevated her game even more. Over her career, Miller scored 3,018 points, a remarkable feat, especially considering the women's three-point line wasn't even in play yet. And as if that wasn't enough, she also grabbed 1,534 rebounds and dished out 462 assists, proving that she wasn't just a scorer. Cheryl Miller was an all-around player who could do it all.
The first half of this women's national championship game from UCLA. Hatmaker to Sheila Collins. Collins drives the paint, tries to put up the shot.
Collins took the lane, and there were 3 SC players on her.